Welcome, you curious mind, to a deep dive designed specifically for you. You're here because you want to get smart, fast on the stuff that really matters without getting lost in a sea of information.
Hmm.
Today, we're tackling a concept that promises exactly that: essentialism. We've sifted through Greg McKeown's insightful book, Ja Szokiewnycz, along with a collection of other thought-provoking articles to bring you the core essence of this powerful philosophy.
That's right. You, our listener, are looking for that signal in the noise, the crucial insights that can make a real difference without overwhelming you.
Yeah,
Essentialism offers a disciplined approach to just that, identifying and eliminating the non-essential so you can laser focus on what truly counts.
right.
Our mission in this deep dive is to show you how embracing these principles can give you more control, lead to greater success in your endeavors, and ultimately bring more satisfaction to your day-to-day.
Okay, so let's jump straight into the problem that essentialism aims to solve. One of the stories that really illustrated this for me was about a graphic designer named Trisha Morse.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Early on, she said yes to every single project that came her way. Initially, her clients were happy, but it sounds like that approach quickly became, well, unsustainable. What did you make of her experience?
Well, Trisha's situation perfectly captures the dilemma many of us face, doesn't it? By trying to juggle every request, even the less important ones, her work quality eventually suffered and she inevitably experienced burnout.
Right, burnout, big problem.
And it wasn't just bad for her, it wasn't even the best service for her clients in the long run.
Good point.
Her eventual shift to deliberately saying no highlights a fundamental truth. As the philosopher Lin Yutang wisely put it, wisdom consists in the ability to eliminate the non-essential.
Eliminate the non-essential. Okay, it makes me think of Dieter Rams, the legendary designer at Braun. His philosophy was all about the idea that only a handful of things are truly vital and everything else is just clutter.
Exactly, pure noise.
That iconic record player he designed with the clear lid, that was a deliberate act of stripping away that visual noise, wasn't it?
Precisely. And what's really interesting is the initial pushback within Braun itself. Managers actually worried that consumers wouldn't go for such a minimalist design. They feared bankruptcy.
Wow, really? Bankruptcy.
Yeah. It takes real courage, doesn't it, to cut against the grain and eliminate what's traditionally considered necessary. But, as we know, Ram's vision ultimately won out, and his minimalist principles became hugely influential.
Totally changed the game.
This really underscores the fundamental difference between an essentialist and a non-essentialist approach. The essentialist operates with intention, enjoying the focus that comes from prioritizing what matters most.
Control.
While the non-essentialist often feels reactive and overwhelmed by trying to manage too much, just constantly putting out fires.
And this concept of essentialism wasn't just some abstract theory for Greg McKeown, the author, right? He talks about his own journey, moving from a career in law to California, studying at Stanford, and then writing multipliers and starting his own training company. What was the driving force behind that big shift for him?
Well, what's crucial to understand about McKeown's journey is that he was driven by a really fundamental question. Why do so many talented and capable people find themselves bogged down in what he terms meaningless trifles?
Meaningless trifles. Yeah, I can relate.
His own experiences, coupled with observing countless others, led him to recognize a really significant shift in our modern world. For the first time in history, we are confronted with an absolutely unprecedented number of choices, far more than our brains are really equipped to handle effectively.
Right, choice overload.
This constant barrage of options leads to what psychologists call decision fatigue. Think about it, listener. Even seemingly small decisions you make throughout the day can actually drain your mental energy, making it harder to make good choices on the things that truly matter.
It feels like we're constantly being pulled in a million different directions, doesn't it? Not only are there endless options in terms of what we can do and buy, but with social media and constant connectivity, everyone is broadcasting what they consider important.
Oh, totally. Everyone's an expert. Everyone has an opinion.
It creates this relentless social pressure and a real sense of information overload.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you see that this sheer volume of information and opinions makes it incredibly challenging to distinguish the truly vital from the merely trivial. Everyone is vying for your attention, adding to that sense of overwhelming noise you mentioned.
This brings us to a core tenet of essentialism: the power of choice. It really emphasizes that we can choose how we spend our time and energy, doesn't it? It's about taking back control rather than feeling like we're just at the mercy of external demands.
Absolutely. And what's insightful here is the distinction McKeown makes. Essentialists actively exercise their power to choose, recognizing that every yes is implicitly a no to something else.
That's key. Every yes is a no.
Non-essentialists, on the other hand, often become instruments of other people's choices, or even their own past, less conscious decisions. By not actively deciding what's important, we are, in effect, allowing others or just circumstance to dictate our priorities.
And he also delves into the word priority. It's a term we use all the time, often talking about juggling multiple priorities. But its original meaning was actually singular, wasn't it? Just one thing that was most important.
That's a really key insight. You're spot on. The word priority first appeared in the English language way back in the 15th century, and here's the kicker. It had no plural form.
No plural. Wow.
It referred to the single most important thing. It wasn't until the 20th century that we started talking about priorities in the plural.
Huh.
This shift in language, this idea of having multiple top priorities, really reflects a lack of clarity about what truly deserves our focus.
Mm.
It's almost like our language itself has adopted a non-essentialist mindset.
Which naturally leads to the often difficult concept of trade-offs. We simply can't do everything or have everything. That fundamental shift in mindset from how can I do it all to what exactly do I want to do, that's at the heart of essentialism, isn't it?
It is indeed. If we connect this to the bigger picture, understanding and accepting the necessity of trade-offs is actually quite liberating.
Liberating. How so?
Well, it frees us from the impossible task of trying to be all things to all people and allows us to channel our energy where it will have the greatest impact. McKeown shares a great example of an acquaintance who consciously started doing less with minimal effort, mind you, by declining last-minute requests and opting out of unnecessary online discussions and meetings.
So just cutting back.
Yeah, but strategically, this wasn't about being lazy or disengaged. It was a strategic choice to focus on what truly mattered.
So once we come to terms with the fact that we can't do everything, the next crucial step is figuring out what is essential. And the core essentialist principle here is quite direct, isn't it? Almost everything is non-essential.
Exactly. It's pretty stark. This stands in stark contrast to the non-essentialist viewpoint that almost everything is important. Discerning what McKeown calls the trivial many from the vital few is absolutely central to essentialism.
The trivial many versus the vital few.
Right. Richard Kopp's work on the 80-20 principle, the idea that roughly 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts, perfectly illustrates this concept. Think about it, listener. Where in your own life or work might this principle be at play? Identifying that critical 20% can be a game changer.
And Warren Buffett's famous investment strategy is a fantastic, real-world example of this principle in action, isn't it? He makes very few, very large, long-term investments in businesses he thoroughly understands.
Right, deep understand.
With the vast majority of his enormous wealth concentrated in just a handful of companies.
What's truly fascinating about Buffett is his equal emphasis on what he consciously chooses not to do.
Ah, the don't-do list.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He famously said, sometimes what you don't do is just as important as what you do. This incredibly selective approach, ruthlessly focusing on the vital few and deliberately ignoring the seemingly attractive but ultimately trivial many, is a defining characteristic of the essentialist mindset.
Mm-hmm.
This also connects to the idea of the power law, where certain efforts or investments can yield disproportionately large returns, as observed by Nathan Nervold regarding the significant productivity differences between top and average programmers.
The 10x programmer idea.
Something like that, yeah. It makes you wonder, listener, if focusing on finding your power law activities could yield similar outsized results.
This idea of intensely focusing on the vital few is also incredibly relevant when we talk about strategy, both in business and in our personal lives. Strategy, by its very nature, involves making clear choices and, yes, making sacrifices.
Precisely. As the renowned business strategist Michael Porter put it, strategy is about making choices and trade-offs. It's about deliberately choosing to be different.
Choosing to be different.
The classic example of Southwest Airlines' enduring financial success, built upon an essentialist business model focused on low fares and efficient point-to-point operations, stands in stark contrast to the failure of Continental Light.
Oh, yeah, Continental Light. What happened there?
Well, Continental Light tried to adopt some of Southwest's tactics without fully committing to the necessary trade-offs, like simplified baggage handling and no assigned seating. They tried to cherry-pick.
Didn't work out.
Nope. It ultimately led to a diluted strategy and a loss of competitive advantage. Porter's point that strategy is dynamically stable only when it is consistent really underscores the importance of sticking to those essential choices. You got to go all in.
And these strategic trade-offs aren't limited to the business world. They play out in our personal lives as well, often without us even consciously recognizing them, like in the cautionary tale of Erin Callan's demanding career at Lehman Brothers. Oh, right.
Where the boundaries between her work life and personal life gradually disappeared.
Her story is a powerful illustration, really powerful, of how a failure to consciously make essential trade-offs can lead to unintended and often unwelcome sacrifices in our personal lives.
Yeah, it just creeps up on you.
It's unlikely she intentionally set out to have her entire existence consumed by work, but by not making deliberate choices about her time and energy, those choices were effectively made for her by the relentless demands of her profession. This really highlights the critical importance of having clear criteria to guide our decision-making.
Like Johnson & Johnson's now famous response to the Tylenol poisoning crisis back in 1982. That's a classic.
It really is.
Their company Credo, which clearly prioritized the well-being of their customers above all else, provided an unwavering framework for their incredibly difficult decision to recall all Tylenol products, even with the staggering financial implications. That's a prime example of essentialist leadership in action. Their deeply ingrained core values provided the essential compass for navigating an incredibly complex and high-stakes situation.
Clear values, clear decision.
The trade-off was clear: safety versus potential profit, and their credo made the essential choice unambiguous. Similarly, Peter Drucker's insightful advice to Jim Collins, the author,
Yeah, good to great.
right? Drucker told him to focus either on building a great company or creating great ideas, but likely not both, with equal success.
You have to choose.
Exactly. Collins, of course, chose ideas, leading to a smaller organization but with a wider intellectual impact. Focus.
It's so interesting how essentialism isn't just about the things we actively do, but also about intentionally creating space for the things that are truly important. It almost feels counterintuitive in our busy culture, right?
Totally counterintuitive.
But those seemingly unproductive activities, like having time for quiet reflection, careful observation, unstructured play, and sufficient sleep, are actually absolutely crucial for our most essential work.
This is such a critical point, and one that often gets overlooked. In our relentlessly busy world, these activities are frequently undervalued or seen as luxuries to be squeezed in if time allows. I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of mentality. Exactly. But as McKeown persuasively argues, and as history consistently demonstrates, these periods of inactivity are often fundamental for generating breakthrough insights and performing at our peak. He shares a striking anecdote about a CEO who had to resort to an internet-free motel just to carve out the mental space needed to focus on a critical project,
Wow, extreme measures.
highlighting how extreme the need for dedicated, distraction-free time can become.
And when you think about someone like Isaac Newton, his groundbreaking discoveries weren't the result of frantic activity, but rather of long periods of sustained contemplation, just allowing ideas to slowly develop.
Exactly. As his biographer famously noted, when asked how he arrived at the law of universal gravitation, Newton simply replied, by thinking on it continually. Yeah. This powerfully underscores the profound impact of focused, uninterrupted thought. McKeown himself describes his deliberate practice of entering hermit mode for his writing, dedicating significant blocks of time each day to deep, focused work without the constant barrage of distractions.
Hermit mode, I like that.
This created the essential space needed for truly productive work and gave him a greater sense of control over his time and his creative process.
It's almost a paradox, isn't it? It seems that the more demanding and complex the project, the more we actually need that dedicated time for reflection and quiet contemplation.
Precisely. The more external noise and demands we face, the greater our internal need for a calm, focused space to allow our thoughts to coalesce and generate meaningful insights. Even someone as incredibly busy as Jeff Weiner, the former CEO of LinkedIn, intentionally scheduled 2 hours of nothing into his daily calendar time, specifically for thinking and emotional recharging.
2 hours of nothing. How did that work?
Well, initially it might have felt like an indulgence, maybe even wasteful. But he came to realize that this dedicated space significantly enhanced his overall productivity and allowed him to be much more intentional and effective during his active work hours.
So the nothing time made this something time better.
You got it.
This naturally leads us to the importance of looking around, of really paying attention and observing. It's so easy to get hyper-focused on the immediate task at hand that we can completely miss the bigger picture, can't we?
Absolutely. Tunnel vision. The tragic story of Eastern Airlines Flight 401.
That's a chilling one.
It is. It crashed because the pilots became so fixated on a faulty landing gear indicator, like just a tiny light bulb, that they failed to notice critical information about the plane's rapidly decreasing altitude.
Focused on the wrong thing.
Terribly wrong. It serves as a stark and heartbreaking reminder of the dangers of an overly narrow focus. Essentialism encourages us to periodically step back, broaden our perspective, and carefully observe what's truly happening around us to ensure we're not missing the forest for the trees.
And then there's the often underappreciated element of play. It's frequently dismissed as being frivolous or unproductive in the professional world.
Yeah, adults don't play.
Right. But it seems to be a vital component in helping us understand what truly matters and in fostering creativity and innovation.
What's fascinating here is how the historical emphasis on pure efficiency that arose from the Industrial Revolution has, in many ways, overshadowed the crucial role that playfulness has always had in driving innovation and discovery.
Always.
Think about it. Many breakthroughs come from tinkering, experimenting, just messing around. But more forward-thinking companies are beginning to recognize and actively cultivate its value.
Like who?
Think about examples like Twitter's implementation of improv classes under Dick Costolo.
Improv. Interesting.
IDEO's unconventional practice of holding meetings in a van, the playful and stimulating office decor at Google, or the creatively designed workspaces at Pixar. They build playfulness into the environment.
So it's intentional.
Very much so. Stuart Brown, in his insightful book, Play, even advises us to consciously reconnect with the types of games and playful activities we enjoyed in our past to reignite that vital spirit of exploration and discovery. Remember what you loved as a kid.
Huh. Find your inner child.
Basically, yeah.
And we absolutely can't overlook the fundamental power of sleep. It seems so basic, but the impact of chronic sleep deprivation on our overall health, our cognitive function, and our productivity is really quite severe.
It is indeed, and often underestimated. The personal experience of Jeff Davis, who suffered debilitating panic attacks as a direct result of overwork and chronic sleep deprivation.
Panic attacks from lack of sleep.
Yes, it provides a powerful and sobering example of the serious physical and mental toll that ignoring this essential need can take.
Wow.
The influential Harvard Business Review article, Sleep Deficit, the performance killer, even draws a stark comparison between the cognitive impairment caused by sleep deprivation and that of alcohol intoxication, like having a blood alcohol content of 0.1%.
So basically drunk.
Functionally, yes. Furthermore, compelling research continues to demonstrate that even short periods of deep REM sleep play a crucial role in enhancing our brain's ability to make new connections and improve overall understanding. So, skimping on sleep isn't just about feeling tired. It's fundamentally hindering our ability to think clearly and effectively.
So it turns out that consistently sacrificing sleep in the supposed name of increased productivity is actually incredibly counterproductive in the long run.
Massively counterproductive.
Getting sufficient, high-quality sleep ultimately leads to greater efficiency, allowing us to achieve more of what truly matters in less time.
Exactly. We're even seeing a notable shift in cultural perception, as evidenced by the Wall Street Journal article that declared sleep is the new status symbol for successful entrepreneurs.
A status symbol, really?
Yeah, moving away from the hustle culture glorification of sleep deprivation. High achievers like Jeff Bezos of Amazon and Mark Andreessen of Netscape openly prioritize sleep, recognizing its absolutely crucial role in their cognitive function, their decision-making abilities, and their overall well-being.
So the top performers get it.
They do. Even the presence of dedicated nap pods at a company like Google, while perhaps underutilized by some, sends a clear signal about the organization's recognition of the profound importance of sleep for optimal performance. It says, we value this.
Okay, so once we've created that essential space and have a clear understanding of our priorities, we still face a constant influx of opportunities and requests. This is where the essentialist principle of defining really strict criteria for what we'll pursue becomes so important, right? It's about having a robust filter.
Precisely. You need a good filter. Having radical, almost unreasonably high criteria allows us to move beyond simply saying yes to good opportunities and instead focus our precious time and energy only on the truly great ones.
Good is the enemy of great.
Exactly that. McKeown shares a compelling example of a company that implemented a strict scoring system for evaluating potential projects, deciding to pursue only those that scored a 90 out of 100 or higher.
90 or above, that's tough.
It is. But this seemingly extreme filter empowered employees to concentrate on the highest impact work and ultimately led to more significant and meaningful contributions. It cut out the mediocre stuff.
And the example of Mark Adams at Vitso, the esteemed furniture company that has steadfastly produced only their iconic 606 universal shelving system for decades.
Just the one system.
That's a powerful illustration of adhering to incredibly strict and consistent criteria. Their highly selective hiring process, which notably begins with phone interviews, specifically to mitigate visual biases, also speaks volumes about this principle in action.
What's so insightful about Vitso is their unwavering commitment to their core essential product and their deep-seated belief that it's far better to have a shortage of staff than to bring on the wrong people who might dilute their focused culture and their meticulous standards.
Quality over quantity in people, too.
Absolutely. Their deliberately rigorous hiring process, starting with those initial phone interviews, truly demonstrates a profound understanding of the power of applying strict criteria across all facets of their business. Similarly, consider the story of Nancy Duarte's presentation agency.
Duarte, yeah, they're well known.
Right. By choosing to focus almost exclusively on the craft of presentations, even during challenging economic times when diversification might have seemed like a safer bet, they became globally recognized for their expertise, ultimately leading to high-profile opportunities like Al Gore's groundbreaking and inconvenient truth presentation.
Because they were the best at that one thing.
Exactly. Deep focus, strict criteria.
This naturally leads us to the power of making one clear decision, of operating with real intentionality. The idea that one decision costs thousands, it really underscores the massive ripple effect that having clear goals and intentions can create.
Exactly. Think about the common business exercise of trying to match mission statements to well-known Fortune 500 companies.
Oh yeah, those are always so generic.
Right. The fact that it's often surprisingly difficult to do accurately highlights the pervasive problem of vague and indistinguishable goals within organizations. A lack of clear, compelling goals inevitably leads to a cascade of negative consequences,
Like what?
including higher employee turnover, decreased motivation among the workforce, and poor collaboration across teams. When individuals and teams don't have a clear understanding of the overarching purpose and desired outcomes, they often unfortunately default to playing what McCune aptly terms the game of politics,
Officepolitics.u.
where the primary focus shifts to gaining managerial favor rather than contributing meaningfully to a shared objective.
And this lack of clear intentionality isn't just a problem in the workplace. It absolutely applies to our personal lives as well, doesn't it? Without clearly defined personal goals and values, we can easily get swept up in societal expectations and social comparisons, overvaluing superficial achievements and possessions.
Absolutely. Keeping up with the Joneses, right? McKeown astutely points out the common pitfalls of ineffective mission statements, those that are inspiring in tone, but ultimately too general to provide any real guidance,
Fluffy statements.
or those filled with generic and bland values that lack any distinctive character, or those that focus solely on short-term tactical goals without connecting to a larger, more inspiring vision.
So what makes a good one?
Well, the crucial question we must continuously ask ourselves is, how will we know when we have actually achieved our goal? It needs to be specific, measurable.
Right.
The powerful example of Brad Pitt's Make It Right organization, with its specific and measurable fundamental intention to build 150 affordable, green, and storm-resistant homes in a clearly defined neighborhood of New Orleans,
Very specific.
stands in stark contrast to well-intentioned but ultimately vague missions like eliminate world hunger. The specificity of the Make It Right goal makes it tangible, actionable, and therefore truly inspiring.
Okay. Now, having that clarity of purpose and those strict criteria in place makes the next step, the often daunting courage to say no, significantly easier, even though it's still something that many of us find ourselves struggling with.
It is indeed. Saying no is hard for a lot of people. But as Rosa Parks's powerful and timely refusal to give up her seat on the bus so eloquently demonstrated, a well-considered no, delivered at the right moment, can be an incredibly potent force for change.
A single no changed history.
Exactly. McHugh shares a relatable anecdote about Cynthia and her father's long-planned trip to San Francisco.
Oh yeah, the trip dilemma.
To illustrate the internal conflict we often experience when we want to decline an enticing new opportunity but feel obligated to honor a previously made commitment. That feeling of substantial awkwardness that often accompanies saying no stems from our deeply ingrained human desire for normative conformity, our fundamental need to get along with others and maintain social harmony. We don't want to rock the boat.
But the short-term discomfort of uttering that no for a few fleeting moments is often far less painful and damaging than the long-term regret and resentment that can build from saying yes to something that fundamentally doesn't align with our true priorities.
Absolutely. That resentment eats away at you. Peter Drucker's insightful quote, "People are effective because they say no," really resonates here.
Because they say no. Simple but powerful.
It is. The non-essentialist often defaults to saying yes out of a sense of social awkwardness, a desire to please, or simply to avoid potential conflict. The essentialist, on the other hand, understands the strategic power of saying no to the non-essential in order to create the necessary space and energy to wholeheartedly say yes to what truly matters most.
So it's a strategic no.
Yes, the compelling story of the renowned designer Paul Rand refusing to create multiple logo options for Steve Jobs.
For Steve Jobs, takes guts.
Right. He insisted on presenting only the single best solution he could devise. This beautifully illustrates this courage to say no and the deep respect it can ultimately earn. Jobs actually respected him more for it.
Wow. Okay, so how do we actually say no gracefully?
McEwen offers several practical ways. There's the softer, "I'm not the right person for this,"
Hmm.
or a direct but polite no. Also helpful phrases like, "Let me check my calendar," which buys you time.
The polite delay tactic.
Or, "That sounds great, but I am already overcommitted at the moment." Or even asking clarifying questions like, "What are you trying to achieve?" Sometimes helps redirect. And sometimes you can suggest someone else. "I can't do it, but X might be interested."
Good options.
Kay Krill, the former CEO of Ann Inc., even shared her personal struggle with overcommitting to too many meetings and her eventual realization of the crucial need to decline invitations that weren't directly aligned with her core priorities. Even CEOs struggle with this.
Right. Okay, so even after we've made a conscious effort to be selective, we might still find ourselves burdened by past commitments that no longer serve us. That's where the often overlooked principle of uncommitting, of intentional letting go, becomes absolutely essential. It's about recognizing when something has run its course.
Exactly, cutting your losses.
Yeah.
Many of the difficulties and frustrations we experience in our lives arise from a common pattern, saying yes too quickly to things and then saying no to letting go of them far too slowly.
Holding on too long.
Definitely. The historical saga of the Concorde supersonic jet is a classic, albeit large-scale example of the sunk cost fallacy in action. The irrational tendency to continue investing significant resources in a failing project, despite clear evidence of its weak economic viability, simply because of the substantial investments that have already been made.
Throwing good money after bad.
Precisely. This behavior is often driven by a powerful combination of the fear of admitting a loss and the desire to avoid appearing wasteful. We also see the pervasive influence of the status quo effect, where we continue doing things simply because that's the way they've always been done.
We've always done it this way.
Even if those practices are no longer effective or efficient, think of an outdated employee evaluation system that everyone agrees is flawed, but no one takes the initiative to change.
Inertia.
And, of course, the ever-present fear of missing out, or FOMO, can be a significant barrier to uncommitting from undesirable obligations and freeing up our mental and emotional bandwidth for more essential pursuits. We worry we'll miss something amazing if we let go.
So, what are some effective strategies for overcoming these psychological barriers and learning to uncommit when necessary? It sounds hard.
It can be. McEwen introduces a valuable concept called the reverse pilot, inspired by Daniel Shapiro at LinkedIn, which offers a low-risk approach to testing the true significance of different aspects of our lives before making a full commitment, or before fully uncommitting.
A reverse pilot, like testing removal.
Exactly. Think of it, listener, as a trial period for stopping something. Instead of abruptly ending a major commitment, what's a small, reversible experiment you could conduct to gauge its real impact and alignment with your priorities if it were gone? Maybe skip that recurring meeting for a month and see what happens.
Test the waters before diving out.
Right. The core takeaway here is that developing the ability to uncommit gracefully and strategically is a crucial skill on the path to becoming a true essentialist.
Okay. Once we've rigorously identified and shed the non-essential elements from our lives and work, the next powerful step in the essentialist approach is about refining and enhancing what remains. This is where the principle of editing comes into play, intentionally subtracting in order to ultimately add greater value.
Precisely. Like sculpting. Michelangelo's famous quote, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free," beautifully encapsulates this idea of revealing the essential by skillfully removing the extraneous.
Carving away the excess.
Think about the art of filmmaking. The Academy Award for Best Film often goes to movies that are also nominated for Best Editing, highlighting the transformative power of subtraction in enhancing the final product.
Editing makes the story tighter.
Exactly. The Essentialist, much like a skilled journalist meticulously identifying and connecting the most crucial points while discarding less relevant details, or a discerning film editor carefully cutting and shaping raw footage, understands the profound impact of strategic elimination. Jack Dorsey, the co-founder of Twitter and Square, views the role of the CEO as that of the chief editor,
Chief editor. Interesting title.
constantly selecting the one or two truly vital priorities from a multitude of possibilities, cutting through the noise to find the signal.
It's all about achieving maximum impact and results with the most focused and minimal means, isn't it? Like Graham Hill's innovative small New York apartment, which utilizes multifunctional furniture to maximize utility within a drastically reduced physical space.
Right? Maximizing function, minimizing stuff. Or consider the example of a high-performing employee who strategically declined attendance at routine, less critical weekly meetings in order to dedicate their focused attention to more impactful project-based work.
Just opting out.
Strategically.
Yeah.
Even a concise and well-articulated no can be a powerful act of editing in our interactions. The insightful anecdote of Jin Yoon, who thoughtfully declined an additional work assignment in the lead-up to her wedding,
Good for her.
not only protected her own time and well-being, but also prompted her manager, Hiyori, to recognize inefficiencies in her own management approach, demonstrating how setting clear boundaries can create positive ripple effects.
So her no helped her boss.
In a way, yes, made her rethink things. And consider Clayton Christensen's consistent refusal to work on weekends due to his deeply held commitments to his family and his faith. This deliberate editing of his professional time allowed him to prioritize what was truly essential in his life.
Setting firm boundaries.
Absolutely. McEwen uses a compelling analogy. Imagine people constantly trying to water their own lawns, using the water from your sprinkler system. Proactively establishing clear boundaries is essential to ensure your resources are directed towards your own essential priorities. You got to protect your water.
Protect your water. I like that. Okay, now, once we've diligently identified our essential priorities and created the necessary space for them, how do we ensure that they consistently get done without requiring constant conscious effort? That's where the essentialist principle of creating robust systems comes into play.
Precisely. Automation, in a sense.
Right.
After the often challenging work of identifying what truly matters, the next logical step is to design and implement systems that allow us to execute those essential tasks as effortlessly as possible.
Make the important things easy.
Exactly. Think of it as the difference between constantly tidying a cluttered closet and taking the time to organize it systematically with shelves and containers. The initial effort of creating the system pays off in the long run by reducing ongoing friction and making it easier to maintain order. The overarching goal here is to make engaging in our essential activities as easy and as automatic as possible. Habit formation.
But even with the most well-designed systems in place, life has a habit of throwing unexpected curveballs our way. Stuff happens.
It always does.
That's why the essentialist concept of building in a buffer, of preparing proactively for the unforeseen, is so incredibly important.
Absolutely. Planning for the unexpected. Abraham Lincoln's wisdom in saying, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe," beautifully illustrates the power of preparation.
Sharpening the axe. Preparation.
Consider the biblical story of Joseph in the Old Testament, who astutely interpreted Pharaoh's dream and saved Egypt from a devastating famine by proactively preparing for 7 years of scarcity during 7 years of abundance.
Saving for a rainy day. Literally.
Pretty much. In our inherently unpredictable world, essentialists understand that unexpected events and challenges are not a matter of if, but when. Therefore, they consciously create buffers, whether it's financial reserves, extra time in a schedule, or contingency plans to effectively navigate these unforeseen circumstances.
Like padding your schedule.
Exactly. Think of the Norwegian government's sovereign wealth fund, built from oil revenues, as a massive buffer against future economic uncertainties on a grand scale.
Right.
Contrast this with the meticulous and thorough preparation of Roald Amundsen for his successful South Pole expedition compared to the tragically inadequate preparations of Robert Falcon Scott. Preparation made all the difference.
Huge difference.
Life and death.
The research by Jim Collins and Morton Hansen in Great by Choice also compellingly demonstrates that companies that thrive in unpredictable environments are those that proactively prepare for a wide range of potential events. They build in buffers.
Makes sense. We also need to be aware of the planning fallacy, our common tendency to underestimate the time and resources required to complete tasks, often due to social pressures or overly optimistic assumptions.
We always think things will take less time.
Almost always. This makes the practice of deliberately adding buffers to our schedules even more critical. Add 50% maybe?
Good rule of thumb.
And finally, consider Elihu Goldratt's concept from the goal, identifying and addressing the primary constraint or bottleneck in a process to improve overall flow and resilience. Fixing the bottleneck has huge leverage.
Behind the bottleneck.
A small initial effort focused on the critical point can create significant downstream momentum, like strategically pushing a large boulder downhill. Find the right leverage point.
And as we diligently work on our essential tasks and projects, actually seeing tangible progress is a tremendous source of motivation, isn't it? The power of those small wins along the way really can't be overstated.
Absolutely. Momentum is huge. Dag Hammarskjöld's insightful quote, "Never measure the height of a mountain until you have reached the top. Then you will see how low it was," reminds us to focus on the journey of continuous progress, rather than being discouraged by the perceived enormity of the ultimate goal. Just take the next step.
Keep climbing.
Consider the innovative approach of the Richmond, Canada Police Department, which started rewarding good driving behavior with positive tickets, a small but powerful way to reinforce desired actions.
Catching people doing something right.
Exactly. Research consistently shows that progress is one of the most effective forms of human motivation, providing us with the energy and confidence needed to sustain our efforts and achieve future success, as highlighted in Frederick Herzberg's work on achievement and recognition.
Feeling like you're getting somewhere.
Right. Even Napoleon Bonaparte understood the profound power of recognition, famously saying that a simple ribbon could be worth dying for.
Wow, recognition matters.
The surprising insights from the Stanford Prison Experiment also illustrate how taking on a role, even a temporary one, can create momentum towards specific behaviors. The roles we play shape us.
Hmm.
McKeown shares a personal example of his family implementing a token system to gradually reduce screen time and encourage more reading among his children, demonstrating how a small initial effort can snowball into significant positive change.
Small changes, big results over time.
Pixar's iterative movie-making process, with its reliance on storyboards, rough cuts, and early feedback, is another fantastic example of leveraging small, low-stakes steps to build towards extraordinary results. Fail early, fail often, but keep moving forward.
Iteration.
And don't underestimate the power of simply visualizing progress. Think of fundraising thermometers or star charts for tracking behavioral goals. Seeing it helps.
It's a tangible.
Finally, establishing consistent daily routines, even seemingly small ones, helps to simplify complex tasks by strengthening neural connections in our brains. It literally rewires your brain.
Building habits.
Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's research on highly creative individuals often reveals their reliance on surprisingly strict routines to free up their minds for more innovative thinking. The routine frees the mind.
Interesting paradox again.
The key takeaway when establishing new routines is to start small and focus on changing one thing at a time to build sustainable momentum. Don't try to overhaul everything at once.
Start small.
Hmm?
Okay, finally, essentialism brings us to the crucial concept of presence, of truly focusing our attention on what is important right now. It's about being fully engaged in the current moment rather than being distracted by the past or worried about the future.
Exactly. Being here now. Thich Nhat Hanh's profound words. Life can be found only in the present moment. The past is gone, the future is not yet here, and if we do not go back to ourselves in the present moment, we cannot be in touch with life. Beautifully encapsulate this core principle.
Being in touch with life.
Consider the inspiring story of Larry Gelwicks, the highly successful Highland High School rugby coach, whose core coaching philosophy centered on constantly asking his players the simple but powerful question, what's important now?
What's important now? Win.
Well, yes, but how? This laser focus on the present play, on their own immediate tactics, rather than dwelling on the opponent's strengths or past mistakes, fostered incredible concentration and team unity. Focus on the next tackle, the next pass.
Stay in the play.
McKeown shares his own personal experience of practicing mindful eating, noting the significant feeling of presence and increased focus he experienced throughout the afternoon as a result. Just paying attention to lunch.
Mindful eating.
This intentional focus on the present stands in stark contrast to the pervasive habit of multitasking, which often leaves us feeling scattered and less effective in all our endeavors. We think we're doing more, but we're often doing less poorly.
The myth of multitasking.
Exactly. The anecdote of the former classmate who was visibly distracted by his phone during a crucial job-seeking conversation powerfully illustrates the negative impact of a lack of presence on our interactions and opportunities. He blew it.
Yeah, sends a bad signal.
This Nhat Hanh's core concept of mindfulness is about intentionally returning home to the present moment and finding happiness and fulfillment right there.
Finding happiness now.
His simple practice of mindful tea drinking, fully engaging all his senses in the experience, is a beautiful example of being completely present and appreciating the richness of life in the current moment. Just the tea.
Simple but profound.
Essentialism encourages you, listener, to identify and cultivate your own kairos moments, those opportune moments of deep presence in your daily life. Find those moments.
So when we weave all these principles together, it becomes clear that essentialism isn't just a collection of time management techniques or productivity hacks. It's a fundamental way of being, a conscious approach to living a life that truly resonates with meaning and purpose.
Precisely. It's a philosophy for life. As Socrates wisely cautioned us long ago, beware the barrenness of a busy life.
The barrenness of a busy life. Powerful.
McEwen shares his own initial path towards a conventional and potentially unfulfilling legal career in England, and how a transformative round-the-world trip profoundly shifted his perspective on what truly mattered, changed his whole trajectory.
The trip woke him up.
The remarkable life of Mahatma Gandhi, who focused his extraordinary efforts on achieving Indian independence without ever holding formal political office, serves as a powerful example of impactful essentialism on a global scale, making him a moral voice for humanity, pure focus.
Incredible impact with minimal official power.
The roots of this philosophy can even be traced back to various spiritual traditions and teachings throughout history. Buddha, Moses, Muhammad, John the Baptist, early Christian groups like the Quakers, Jesus himself, focus on the core message.
It's an ancient wisdom, really.
It is. The Dalai Lama wisely stated, "If life is simple, then disaster cannot touch you. If life is elaborate, full of unnecessary things, then disaster is right there. Complexity invites disaster."
Wow.
Ultimately, living an essentialist life is about living a life of genuine meaning, a life that really matters to you. What matters to you? McKeown shares a poignant parable of a grieving father who meticulously filmed many events of his young daughter's short life, but later realized that in his focus on capturing the broader surroundings, he had missed precious close-up moments of her face and expressions.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. Focused on the background, missed the subject.
Exactly. This serves as a powerful metaphor for the danger of getting so caught up in the periphery that we miss the essence of what truly matters.
Yeah.
The final, deeply reflective question that McEwen poses is this: if you died tomorrow, what would you have wanted to have done?
Heavy question.
It is. But he suggests that honestly answering this profound question is the true starting point of the essentialist path. What truly matters.
So just to quickly recap some of those key principles we've explored, essentialism is about identifying the vital few things that truly matter, eliminating the overwhelming multitude of non-essential distractions,
Cutting the clutter.
making deliberate and conscious choices about where we invest our time and energy, intentionally creating space for reflection and rejuvenation,
Building in that buffer time, that thinking time.
rigorously filtering opportunities based on strict criteria, acting with clear intention and purpose, cultivating the courage to say no to the non-essential,
Strategic.
strategically uncommitting from things that no longer serve us, skillfully editing our lives to maximize impact, creating systems to streamline essential tasks,
Making the important easy.
proactively building in buffers for the inevitable unexpected events, fostering progress through celebrating small wins and building momentum, and cultivating a deep sense of presence in the current moment.
Phew. That's quite a list, but it all hangs together. And the ultimate benefit for you, our listener, in embracing these principles is the ability to gain knowledge efficiently, avoid that feeling of being constantly overwhelmed, and achieve a greater sense of control, effectiveness, and lasting impact in all your endeavors.
It really brings you back to that powerful image of the grieving father, doesn't it? Are we in our own lives and endeavors so busy trying to capture every detail of the periphery that we're inadvertently missing those precious close-up moments of what truly matters most?
It's a powerful question to ask ourselves.
Embracing essentialism isn't about relentlessly doing more. It's fundamentally about creating the necessary space and focus for what truly resonates with you and contributes to a deeply meaningful life.
Indeed, a powerful thought to carry with you.